You are watching Macro TV, and in this video we are finally finishing up with Chapter 2 in Study Unit 2. That's in the textbook for Rie and Berger. Now we've been looking at the basic model of the real economy, and this final video is about the formula that you would be able to use looking at your expenditure model C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So all the components of total expenditure. Now, for each of these, when we talked about the individual components of expenditure, you know that it's slightly more complicated than just talking about C plus I plus G. In the case of household consumption, we know that households consume from the after tax income, so you have to account for taxation. And of course, the B there refers to the marginal propensity to consume. There's also an exogenous level of consumption that is fixed even when income is zero. We know that investment there's a fixed level of investment, and it also is negatively related to the interest rate R. So we know that on the import side, there's a fixed level of imports when incomes are zero, but there's also a marginal propensity to import and a positive relationship between imports and income. Now, it's possible to substitute all of these back into equation 1 and replace the capital letter C with these elements of the equation. There you go, all the different components: exogenous consumption, the marginal propensity to consume, taking account of the tax rate. You replace I with the level of investment and the negative relationship between investment and interest rates. Government spending we assume to be exogenous, that's just the G. Exports is also completely exogenous, that's just the X. And imports over here get replaced by this fixed level of imports and the marginal propensity to import governed by the M there, multiplied with incomes. And then if you simplify this equation and move everything about a bit, you get this sort of final one where you can sort of identify the value of y over there, and this portion y is a function of a first term over here multiplied with these other components on the right hand side is called the injection leakage approach. And this left hand side part that's written here on this side again is called the multiplier. Now that's the focus of what we tackle in the rest of this video, is to talk a bit about the use of the multiplier. Now, it's a multiplier in the sense that it multiplies the effect of changes in the exogenous components of spending. So if there's some change in spending, it leads to an impact on incomes, and that effect is multiplied. So for each amount that is spent by a consumer, by the government, by investors, some portion of it is received by someone else as their income. And again, they spend that money, some portion of it, and you basically get the income multiplier going, that when incomes are received and spent again, it leads to a multiplier effect on the total level of income in the economy. So how big the multiplier is depends on the percentage of incomes that are re-spent. This percentage, it also depends on leakages from the so-called circular flow. So imports, that's money flowing out of the economy. Savings, that's money being taken out of the circular flow. And taxes is also a leakage from the circular flow. So these three factors remove money from consumers' pockets, from the economy, and it then sort of reduces the impact of the multiplier, which we'll see in a minute. Now, you can then say, well, this just sort of re-mentions again, this sort of gives you the formula for the multiplier. It tells you what the leakages are, savings, imports, and taxes. And you'll recall that you have a marginal propensity to save and a marginal propensity to consume. So if you have consumers that are saving a lot, that means there's less money going back into the spending income cycle, so that would reduce the multiplier. Of course, you have the marginal propensity to import, so as incomes go up, you import more and more, that's money flowing out of the circular flow. Of course, if tax rates are higher, that means money taken out of the pockets of the consumer that's not available to spend on their side, and that also reduce the the effect of the multiplier. Now, the exogenous components in this story is there is some level of exogenous spending in the economy. We know that consumers has a level of exogenous spending that's independent of income, that sort of basic spending on foodstuffs, clothing, housing of some kind. Even when income is zero, you still need to consume. We also know that there's an exogenous level of investment. When interest rates are zero, there would be some fixed level of investment. We, in our model, set it up in such a way that government spending is not at all determined by income. It's completely independent of income. And the same goes for exports, because those decisions to buy South African goods get taken outside in the foreign sector by foreign buyers. So the importers in other countries, those are the ones that we export to, and they don't base their decisions on South African incomes, so it's exogenous. And then there's also some exogenous, autonomous, fixed level of imports. Even when incomes are zero, we're still going to import some portion of our consumption. All this typically means is that we can distinguish between these exogenous spending factors and then induced factors. So on the inducing side, its basic changes are driven by changes in the marginal propensity to consume, the tax rate, and the marginal propensity to import. So there are two little examples here of an injection. If you have an increase in the marginal propensity to consume, what does that do to aggregate spending in our model? It basically swivels this expenditure function upwards, because you now have a steeper slope. You're spending more of your additional income. That would lead to an increase in incomes and outputs, economic growth, in other words. And the other way around, if consumers decide to save more, and it's due to a reduction in the marginal propensity to consume, it would lead to the expenditure function swiveling down. Similarly, if tax rates go up, that would swivel the expenditure function down. If marginal propensity to import is greater, that also swivels the expenditure function down, causing a decline in incomes and production. In conclusion, this last video explained the formula that goes along with the Keynesian approach. We would typically ask you to do some calculations in a test or in the exam, so you need to master this. And we'll be practicing a few of these in class and also at facilitation.